Welcome to today's session, Navigating Learning from Home. You guys are here today with our two co-hosts, Lauren Overton and Omar Crowden, who are both principals at different schools here in Philadelphia. They're going to talk to you guys a little bit about that one to start, but I do want to start with some ground rules. For this section, I just want you guys to know that the session is being recorded. I know you had to agree to that when you popped in. However, just again, the session is being recorded for our record. I want to remind everyone to keep your audio turned off unless you are speaking. It does become a little distracting if people have different things in their background, even noise that we think are low for us may sound a little bit higher for other people. Another thing, point out user reactions. I'll give you guys a quick example. We have these little things here. So if they say something great, use your clap your hand feature. If they say something that you agree with, use your thumbs up feature. And just so you know, you can change the color tones in your settings to your preference. Next thing up is I want you guys to ask your questions, but ask them in the chat unless they let you know it's time to ask questions. I'll be giving them cues throughout the session, letting them know if people have their hands up or if they're asking questions. But we want to just wait until it's that point in that time. And then lastly, I just want to do a big thank you for Mainline Fertility, who is sponsoring today's session. They're a great organization that's been with us for, I think this is at least 3 years. They have sponsored with PFP. So I'm going to be putting their information in the chat. Look them up. They have some really great stuff. And thank you. And I'm turning it over to you guys.
Hi, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I know it's been probably a busy morning if you've attended other sessions. So I am very excited to be here with you today. My name is Lauren Overton, and I am the school principal at Penn Alexander in West Philadelphia. And I would like to introduce my co-facilitator, Omar. Omar, do you want to tell them a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. It's so nice to be with you all this morning. My name is Omar Crowder, and I'm the proud principal of Northeast High School in the Northeast.
Great. So today we are going to work through a couple of things that may be on your mind, but first we want to hear from you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We are going to start with, since we're a relatively small group, I think that we can do this, hang on one second. There we go. I think we can do this pretty easily, actually, as opposed to going out into breakout rooms, but we are going to start with just names and pronouns. So if you don't mind telling us names and pronouns, and maybe since we're a small group, throw in how many kiddos that you have in your family. So I'll start. Lauren Overton, she, her, hers. I have 575 children at the school I look after, none of my own, but I really look forward to hearing from all of you as well. So I'll pass the mic.
All right, I'm Omar Crowder. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I don't have any children of my own per se, but I do have 3,486 kids that I call mine. Thank you.
Anybody can come off mute. Don't be shy.
Hi, I'm Tammy Gerber, and I have 2 kids, a 10-year-old and an almost 8-year-old, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm glad to be here.
Welcome, Tammy.
Welcome.
Hi there, I'm Yari, pronouns they, them, theirs. I'm going to be moving to Philly in 2021, and I'm in the process of adopting an LGBTQ kiddo, likely a teenager, from foster care, and hopefully more once I'm in Philly. So I'm so thrilled to be learning already about schools, as well as I could be parenting at any moment. So strategies for navigating that. So thank you much, everyone.
This is perfect. Yari, I owe you an email. We have to connect.
I thought your name sounded familiar. Thank you. Not today.
Yes,
no.
nice to see you in person.
Yeah, ditto.
All right.
Hi, I'm Mark. I'm zooming in from Long Island in New York. I run an LGBT families program, so I have lots of kids that I connect with, but I also have a foster child who's 19. And so I'm here to learn a little bit about how to support all ages, including elementary. So thanks so much.
Welcome, Mark.
Hi again, I'm Tiffany Bird. I'm sit on the PFP board. I'm a social worker, and I also have a 4-year-old kiddo through adoption. I went through the foster care route as well, which worked out really, really well for me. And I'm excited to learn different ways to, with a younger child, early elementary, just different ways to help educate and teach from home. Thanks, guys. She, her, hers pronouns, by the way. Sorry about that.
Awesome. Thank you, Tiffany.
I could go, I guess. Hi, everybody. Stephanie Haynes. I am the director of Philly Family Pride. Thanks, everybody, for being here. And my pronouns are she and her. And I missed what were the other question we were going to answer.
How many kiddos do you have?
Oh, how many kids? I have twins who are 14.
Awesome. Let's see. I think we have 2 other folks. Lori, are you there? Do you want to introduce yourself? It's okay if not. And someone else, it says sporadic on the call. If you would like to, anyone else like to introduce themselves before we get going? My wait time can be long. I was an elementary school teacher for a while. All right. Okay, so welcome. And I am going to, right now, if you take a look in the chat, you should get dropped a poll everywhere. And the poll everywhere is going to let you just account for where your kiddos go to school. We wanted to just take a quick temperature check of where your children are going to school. I'll pull it up on my screen. Poll Everywhere is just a really fun app that you can use to gauge quick questions from folks. And we also will be able to see the poll as we go. So as you open up there, just go ahead and add where your kiddo goes to school. And if you don't feel comfortable adding where, you can just give elementary, high school, pre-K answer as well. That would be fine. And I'll share with you as we go. I love it. I see homeschooling, unschooling. Anyone else? I'll share this with you all as it goes. This is actually a really fun, if you're ever doing a little presentation online, it's nice because it creates a Wordle as we go. So if you don't mind just typing on in there in the poll everywhere. So far, we've got some high school. Oops, my apologies. I think it just disappeared a bit. Let's see. There we go. Is everybody able to go down in there? I see Penn Alexander family and high school. Okay. So you're welcome to continue to add and drop information in there if you would like. But I love seeing that there are folks from both the high school and the unschooling circumstances. I'm sure there's some elementary folks in here as well. We wanted to just start the conversation by talking about hopes and fears. And so Tiffany's going to drop a line for a Jamboard, which is just a virtual whiteboard, fancy word for a virtual whiteboard. And in there, you're going to see hopes and fears, hopes in yellow, fears in green. On the left-hand side, you can click on the sticky note, just like so. You can pick your color. So if you want to write a hope or a fear, go ahead and jot it down in there so we can help it guide our conversation today. So we'll give a second for anybody who would like to participate to go ahead and drop that information in there. Does anybody need help accessing, or is everybody in? I see a few folks in.
Lauren, when I click on it, it's like it's asking me to edit the page versus participate.
Is it? Uh-oh,
Yeah.
Hang on. Let's see here. Share settings. You should be able to edit yes, you should be able to edit when you get on.
All right.
Stephanie, can you click on the icon with the sticky note? Will that work for you?
Yeah, but it's like it's It didn't bring up a little sticky note like when you showed it. It's more like edit, duplicate, delete, order.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey guys, so
Omar.
the sticky note is actually the fourth one down. If you click on that, you can choose yellow or green. For yellow for hope, green for fears, and you can just type in your sticky note, and I believe if we hit save, it should pop up.
Maybe let me try again.
Awesome. I see. I hope my kid finds a way to battle screen fatigue. We're going to give you some ideas about that today. Having to help with math homework. Oof, that's a fear for sure for many families. Tough having enough of my own work time. That's also a big one as well. You can move your words around too if they overlay. There you go. More time to bond with new adopted kid. Yep. That's a big hope. I hope my child continues to excel after homeschooling. Awesome. Lots of time to read. Awesome. Thank you for participating. We'll give it another 30 seconds if you didn't have an opportunity to contribute, so we can take in everybody's hopes and fears. I fear my son doesn't have enough non-structured but supportive socialization time to build friendships at new school. I hope that I can keep him learning and balance social wellness. I fear LGBTQ families representation won't be a focus. Definitely something we'll talk about today as well. I'm going great. Thank you for being honest. Whomever put that on in there, going crazy in this circumstance. Fear that I'm not living up to the education provided within the classroom. Those are big. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to talk about some things that hopefully will address some of those hopes and fears today. One of the first things that we wanted to start with, and this may be for everybody, that you may be in different circumstances when it comes to setting up your physical space in your home, but given if your child is either unschooling, homeschooling, if they are on a virtual schedule right now or hybrid, we know that one of the things that can make the virtual experience more successful for students is to ensure that the students have a space that they can call their own in your home. And it can look a lot of different ways. I've seen spaces that are set up with the biggest bells and whistles, kids that have nicer looking office spaces than myself, all the way down to people who are just making sure that each kiddo has space at the dining room table or in a quiet room in their home. I shared a few photos of things because one of the things that I think is most important is that kids have everything accessible to them. I think it's really important to help your children and allow them to design their own space. The picture up at the top is actually from a Philadelphia school teacher who had 4 children at home and was saying that, oh my gosh, they're driving me crazy because they're all sitting at the same table. And what she went out to do was to purchase these science boards. And I thought that was a really creative way to let your own child have all their space in one area, even if they're sharing that space. And that I know could also work if you're doing outdoor school. There's a couple of kiddos at my school that we see them working outside, and they have some dividers so that they can pay attention and focus on their own work, especially if you're in a multi-age setting where there are many children in the space. We also wanted to share a bit about making sure that the schedule is posted for students. So if you are following a schedule with your school, having that schedule posted is really important, especially for kids that are anxious and kids that need that extra visual to make sure that they are getting through the day. I know many of the teachers are sending out schedules that are hyperlinked so that you can also embed that in your child's Google Classroom calendar. And also the other thing that you could do is allow them to make their own schedules by utilizing pictures of themselves or drawings, dependent upon your child's interest in that piece. Making sure that you have your workbooks, your headphones, your charger, paper, pencils, and all of that ready to go is really helpful for students. And again, there were a few students that I've encountered at school over the past few weeks who have a lot of anxiety. And one of the things that is helping to ease that is having all of their things at the ready for learning. Omar, do you want to add anything to this piece?
Yes, absolutely. So from the secondary perspective, middle school and high school, the posting of the schedule I think is incredibly, it's so very needed and necessary. What we're finding is that with the older kids, you're starting to see more of a clear distinction between synchronous learning time and asynchronous learning time, where during the asynchronous time period, kids are expected to work independently and on their own. And so being really clear about what time does my synchronous lesson start, and what is the time expectation for asynchronous, I think is also very, very critical. I think that, with as far as designating space, one of the things that we are seeing with older kids, and Lauren and I were talking about this before, about the really the necessity, especially when parents are trusting that their older kids are in fact, in their bedrooms or at the kitchen table or wherever, engaging with their classes, when in fact we know that kids will go back, they'll turn on their Zooms, turn off their cameras and go back to bed. Right, and things like that. And so it's not unheard of. It does happen. And so my other suggestion would be to designate a spot that you would be able to check in periodically. I think it makes all of the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's absolutely right. We've got a couple of kids that like to attend with the covers over their head, which, to some extent is like, if you're listening, that's great. But also there are some kids who are straight up going straight back to sleep. And we're trying to work through that, but it is definitely helpful to have a space you can see. The next piece that we wanted to share was that there can be some ownership over the schedules if you have a little kiddo, as well as if you have a high school student, allowing them to make their own schedule or write it down. We know that for older students, it's a great benefit to executive functioning skills to have them write down their schedule in some form or fashion. Even though we are so immersed in this digital world at the moment, having an opportunity to do that gives them ownership. And for older students, it helps them to see and lay out the day ahead of them, so that they can know what to expect. I love, a quick Google search will give you a bunch of ideas for different schedules to make. But if you are supporting a child at home who is anxious about what they need to do, I think that one of these done schedules is really lovely, and you can just use a piece of paper to fold it over so that the major pieces they have to do for the day are on one side, and the child can flip over the section that says done once they've completed it, similar to a checklist. Of course, a checklist would work, and the truth of the matter is there is no perfect schedule for any one person. I think that, even as an adult, I've tried out multiple rounds of what works for me, and I think that that's true for students as well. But I have seen some great success with elementary school kiddos. And again, you can even have fun with this and take photos of the children engaging in the activities that they need to complete on a daily basis. And the other thing is that they can merge this with what they're doing at home. So you're welcome to make it digital if it's developmentally appropriate. And again, the key here is to let them do it so they have some ownership over this work. If you have now, again, thinking about Tiffany with a 4-year-old, using these picture clues for schedules is actually great. I know for some of my younger students, we made laminated picture cue schedules so that they could write on it with an expo marker if it were things that were daily, such as eating breakfast or taking a shower or whatever your routines are in your home. But setting up these reminders is really helpful for our students so that they can anticipate what the day looks like, and they can help themselves develop some autonomy and independence to do what they need to do.
Yeah, and I would add that, and we're going to, you're going to have a theme, excuse me, there's going to be a theme around time management and around supporting kids, with just managing their day. I think that something that's so very critical for kids of all ages is that when you're building out schedules, that there's some intentionality around meal breaks, around, we're going to talk about brain breaks, a few things, later. But to really, really say, okay, for the next 30 minutes, laptops are closed, technology's away, and you're just going to have a meal, right? We're going to have you unplug and really try to break up the day, similar to what kids would have if they were physically in school. And I think that just being intentional when developing schedules and when creating them is really, really important.
Absolutely. Then there comes this issue of new attention issues at home, which you may have never seen with your child before until this virtual setting. And there are a great deal of OT tips and tricks that we use as educators in the classroom that many parents may not be aware of because they are just in the arsenal of tools that teachers have to provide to students throughout the day. For example, I know at my school, there were many kindergarten families who were very stressed by this new virtual platform. And there were some kiddos who were wiggly, didn't want to sit in the chair. And I reassured them that's normal even in a regular kindergarten classroom. Usually the first 2 months of school, as an elementary school principal, I spend time chasing children that want to leave the classroom or having struggles, staying in their space and also respecting their own space. It's, there's so much that kids learn about their own space that they take up, independence and all of that at an early age. But we also are seeing that students that typically may not have attention issues are exhibiting some signs of attention issues because of this new platform. So I put a few things up here that are really simple and easy that if this applies to your child can be helpful. One of the things that I went out and bought recently for one of my kiddos was a set of exercise bands I think I went to Home Goods and got them for $3, and they had a whole set of different ones that you can put on the bottom of the chair for kids that like to kick or to move their feet as they go. You can provide some stimulation for them that is satisfying while they're sitting in a chair so that they're able to move and sort of fidget, but also be present during their lesson. The other thing that I shared with folks is that a simple yoga ball is a really nice substitute for a regular class chair or dining room chair or space on the floor, because it does give students some of that sensory feedback. They can bounce a little bit in the as they're going along, and that actually helps some students to remain focused and to feel satisfied. It's also great for their tummies and their core, so why not? But it's a little bit more of a comfortable opportunity in comparison to sitting in a hard chair all day. The other piece that we talked about is fidget toys. I am 100% on board with if a kid needs to have Play-Doh in their hand or some sort of gadget or likes to doodle while they're learning, that's absolutely okay and should be encouraged at this time. I, even as an adult, sometimes sit and I have a set of putty on my desk for kids that I'll even break out sometimes. And it definitely helps me focus. So those are some things that you can also ask your classroom teacher about. Sometimes the schools have access to these things, but a lot of things that you can find at a dollar store are good enough to be sensory materials that you could use during class. And then of course a standing desk, which I'm going to fully disclose to you all that I did not use or purchase a real standing desk. I was using like an upside down UPS package that worked just good enough on my dining room table that would allow me to stand and type. So, you don't have to purchase anything like this, but if your kid would prefer to stand, you can use just an empty box or even a Tupperware container to sit on your table or even on the floor, depending on height of your kiddo, that can allow them to stand more often during the day, which I think is really good for all of us. So we also talked about breaks, and I know Omar is a big proponent of the noise reducing headphones as well, and I think that we've seen that to be a great benefit to kids, especially if they're working with a parent that's working, if there's outside noise in the home, if there are other children working around them, it makes a huge difference to be able to have a quiet, safe space.
Absolutely. And, for older kids, what we're finding is it's pretty common for students to have, in addition to their laptop or a desktop, whatever type of computer they're using, to possibly have an iPad, to have a cell phone, that are going on simultaneously, right? And this definitely begs the need for a discussion around how students are using other forms of technology while they're receiving instruction. Because we know for sure that when you break concentration, when you break focus, it really starts to become almost impossible for you to get back into, to regain focus. And so, especially in the days of Snapchat and all these different apps where the kids are kind of inundated with distraction, trying to maintain both at the same time, I think it's a recipe for disaster, to be honest. And so I definitely think that a conversation around the use of additional technology, because kids will tell you that they're using their phone as a calculator, or that they're using their phone for all these different academic purposes, when in fact they're not. And so that would be something that I would highly suggest, that either the additional technology goes away, or there's some real-time discussions about how it's being used.
Absolutely. I watched a class the other day where a child who was showing that they were engaged in the lesson and typing in the chat, but also you could see through her glasses that she was watching Netflix on a separate screen, which was kind of amazing. I was like, give it up for multitasking, but also, she wasn't able to be as present, even though she would every now and then duck in the chat with something to add. But yes, and I can imagine as the students are older in high school that that's probably really common.
Absolutely.
All right. Oops, backing it up. All right, communication. Omar, do you want to take it away and start off with some of the things we found so far around communication that have been helpful?
Absolutely. So I think that, and I'm just looking at the chat here. Mark had made a comment. We should validate that there is communication in students not being engaged, and reevaluate how we are designing lessons to be engaging. And that's exactly where I wanted to start today. So Mark, your points as well taken, and it's very timely. Right now, you'll hear educators say that this is unprecedented. It's a year like no other, and it's absolutely true. And so we have, in my school, and I know in Lauren's school as well, lots and lots of highly, highly effective instructors in the physical classroom space, right? And so we have veteran teachers who before COVID were doing quite well, and now having to make the shift it's a lot more challenging than people had anticipated. And so trying to take effective in-person classroom instruction and adapt that to the virtual space, especially with younger kids, is definitely a challenge that no one was prepared for. And so what we're seeing right now is, and it's evolving daily, weekly. Teachers are sharing best practices and strategies, and we're trying to provide professional development and support for teachers. But really, a lot of this is trial and error. Right. And so the idea around maintaining student engagement is, that's the bulk of the work at my school right now. And we're really trying to figure out how to make that happen. And with that said, one of the things we want to talk about was maintaining positive and productive communication with your child's teacher, with school administration, with the school district or organization that you're connected with. Because this is such a, there's just nothing, we've never lived through anything like this. And so our teachers, oftentimes, they're actually teaching their own kids while simultaneously teaching yours, right? And so they're maintaining learning happening at the dining room table while they're trying to give instruction, right? One of my teachers has a brand new parent sent me an email the other day apologizing because she had to feed her baby in the middle of class, right? And so because her husband had to take a call, kind of a thing. And that's what where we're living right now, right? And so, one of the things that we are starting to see more frequently are communications that are going straight to the principal and not directly to the teacher. And it's so important that we are taking this opportunity to continue to build on those relationships. So pre-COVID, I think in a lot of situations, we saw the power of relationship building between teachers and parents, students and teachers, et cetera. And we cannot allow the virtual space to, circumvent that. And so, what we're saying today is it's so very important to frame any discussion around instruction, around, concerns around rigor, or adaptations for special needs students, is really framed in that, around problem solving and around, how do we figure this out together, more so than blames, accusations, those kinds of things. Because we're seeing that more than ever right now, because parents are frustrated, and understandably so. And so we're really trying to I guess just create a space of camaraderie and collegiality and in a spirit of collaboration, more so than anything.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that has been really helpful is that there are opportunities, and I know somebody had mentioned in the earlier Hopes and Fears activity around the idea around how are, for example, LGBTQ families going to be supported during this time. And I'll give you an example. I had a really positive experience where a parent provided feedback that the teacher was continually using non-inclusive language in the classroom. So referring to the students as boys and girls, or, finding that in some of the text and dialogue sent home to families that it felt that it was very exclusive. And one of the things that I would say is helpful is first bringing it to the attention of the teacher, highlighting any concerns that you have in the classroom, first with the teacher. And if you are thinking that it's more of a systemic issue or something bigger and beyond the teacher, then taking it to the school principal, but also looping in the teacher in that conversation. And in the circumstance at our school, I think that it was a really beautiful thing that a parent had brought to the attention of the teacher. The teacher then had a conversation with me to ask for resources. And then we were able to highlight that it may be a systemic issue around language in the classroom, because parents are now invited into the classroom in a way that has never been before. And you're going to see a lot of things that you're going to see the teachers in their worst moments and some of their best moments in this forum, especially because what Omar said around the sort of rapid acquiring of skills. That is not something that teachers are always expected to do, to completely flip the script on how they're teaching. And so there are issues that are arising across the board. There were issues at our school around scheduling, and I was really grateful for parent feedback. There were concerns around rigor. Again, grateful for parent feedback. I think one of the things that is really helpful, though, is that thinking about how this would work out in a regular setting where you often see your child's teacher on the blacktop in the morning and can ask a question or two. So there's a level of congeniality and sort of casualness about our relationship between parents and teachers that doesn't seem to exist in this setting as much. So I just encourage you that if you are having struggles or seeing major red flags in the processes at your school, schedules, teaching style, things like that, I just encourage you to have a direct conversation that is based in the intent to problem solve with the educator. And then, of course, do reach out to your school principal if this is something that can't be resolved amongst the teacher and the parent. So I agree with that. And I also think that it's really helpful to know that at our schools, we are trying to see what is going on as best as possible, jumping in and out of classrooms. But this is also something from an administrative side is taking some time to understand where the blind spots are, and then also finding that time within the school day or within the professional development time to really give teachers what they need to keep growing in this area, so that we can create those more engaging lessons that Mark talked about, or we can really build upon the ways that we can capture students' attention and excite them and find the opportunities to have joy in this space. And I do know that it's very possible, because I've seen some really exemplar teaching, as well as just camaraderie amongst students. And a lot of that's happening, I think, in small group. A lot of that's happening where student voice is elevated and where engagement is high. So I definitely encourage folks to chat with your teachers when you have issues. And also don't wait until they become an issue that it's just festered and now it's really a frustration because now it's a super emergency. I think bring up things as they come, and that is really helpful to the teacher and to the school.
And I absolutely agree. The one thing that's becoming more frequent with older kids, because teachers are not accustomed to having parents in their classroom. That's just not something that, especially with older kids, that's just something that doesn't happen. It's very rare. And what we're seeing, it's becoming more frequent over the last couple of weeks. Are in the middle of a lesson, a parent will chime in and say, "Hey, I actually disagree with X, Y, and Z, and I just found a resource that you should be, teaching instead," kind of a thing. And we really, really are, advising against that type of communication, right? Because there is a time and place where this could very well be a phone call or an email after class. The thing that we have to keep in mind is our teachers are feeling like brand new teachers, like first year teachers. I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and I feel like a fish out of water sometimes because there are just so many things that I don't know, right? And so I'm learning as I go. We're building, we're building the plane as we're flying right now, and so just to always remember that, and we're always looking for feedback and suggestions for improvement, absolutely, and we want to keep those lines of communication open. It really is, I believe, an issue of time and place.
Oh, one more thing to add on here too is that I know there have been a couple of instances where I'm in a classroom and a kid doesn't know the answer, so they look to the parent, right? And so it really depends on the circumstance or setting that you're in. I'm encouraging families to really just, put it back at the student and say, ask the teacher, right? Because at the end of the day, if you provide them with the answer or say, well, what I heard your teacher say is this, unless your child needs that scaffolding, I think it's really important to just say, hey, ask her again, or ask him again, so that you can know what is going on in the class setting, and the student can start to learn to advocate for themselves when they don't know an answer. And also you can encourage that growth mindset around it's also okay not to know the answer. If a teacher calls on you, there are some things that you can say back that are totally acceptable. I'm not sure what that is, but I would like to know more. Or I didn't quite understand the directions. Can you tell that to me again? Of course, that varies from age to age, but I think even our youngest students, I actually was at a pre-K the other day watching some of the ways that kids were interacting. And one of the teachers that was with these children in this pre-K pod kept referring back to the child and say, ask the teacher, right? Because the child was actually engaged online for pre-K, which is hard. It's really hard for a 4-year-old. And so that is a skill that you can build as opposed to providing that information for the students. And that's really hard because that's our reaction. When kids ask us for something that they need, we want to give it to them immediately, as opposed to giving them the skill to say, just go ahead and ask a question or advocate for yourself. That's totally okay. And it's part of the learning process. Okay. The next piece we wanted to really focus on was this concept of Maslow before Bloom. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I'm not sure how familiar folks are with that, but essentially, as educators, we use both of these frameworks, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs versus Bloom, which has us look at how we engage students in critical thinking. And I've been using this as a mantra as we go throughout this year that is Maslow before Bloom. We are not able to get to critical thinking and high academic achievement if we're not meeting the needs of students. And this has really thrown a different curveball at us regarding how we do this in a setting. So it's just really thinking about, are your needs met? Does your child have all the things that they need to be successful? Are they getting sleep? We're seeing lots of kids not getting enough sleep because they're at home, and there is the inclination to want to stay up a little longer because you can sleep in a little bit longer if you can wear your PJs to virtual time, right? So setting up some routines that you may not normally have if you're at home, but you may find helpful for having some regularity around those things. I have one of my parents shared with me last night that their child is working with a group of other students in their home. And one thing that they thought was really helpful was that is actually inspiring that kid to take a shower and get dressed in the morning. Whereas during parts of the pandemic, that was really hard for everybody to even meet those needs. I mean, I'll fully admit that there were times that was me as well during this time, and continue to be, where we all are experiencing a collective trauma together. And so it's really hard sometimes to track our basic needs and make sure that we are getting what we need. But obviously for your child, this is really falling a lot on the parents to say, well, we need you to make sure that these things are happening in this space, making sure that kids feel safe, and that there's love and belonging. And this is something that, we're trying to work on, as a school district here in Philadelphia, around meeting the emotional needs of students. We've, sort of shifted gears to provide SEL work and framework around social emotional learning every morning, to really check in with kids and see how they're feeling, talk to them about regulation of feelings, talk to them about the different skills that they can have to express their feelings during this year. And these are all things that I think you all as parents and caregivers are likely seeing, that these are big challenges during this time. Many of you are working from home at the same time as trying to support your students, when typically school, if your child is in a brick and mortar school setting, provides a lot of the things that the students need throughout that day. Of course, also there is this concept of making sure that they have a higher level of self-esteem. And we've seen some kids facing challenges with even being on the screen. Middle school kids, and I'm sure high school kids, who looking at yourself every day as a 14 or 15-year-old is really hard. It's a difficult thing. And so I encourage you to really have conversations with the school teacher. If the teacher is demanding the cameras to be on, we know that that's something that is not necessarily the best practice during this time, especially in regards to students who are having challenges looking at themselves on a daily basis. And it's some kids' worst nightmare for that age group. I know that, I have a friend who reached out to me because her child identifies as trans and is really struggling with being on camera during a time when they're going through puberty, at the same time as discovering a lot about themselves. And I really encouraged and supported that friend to say, you have got to advocate, to not only because it was a circumstance where the teacher wasn't budging, that is a circumstance to go to the principal and say, hey, would it be possible if XYZ, because this is the effect it's having on my child. And I think that is something that is so important to advocate for, is seeing if your child is being beat down by school right now, which is happening in a lot of circumstances. Elevate the concern, elevate how the impact is showing up for your child, so that we can make sure that they can meet their best potential and they can be their best selves, even during this complicated time.
Absolutely, and we have about 5 minutes together. I just wanted to just quickly add in this Maslow's piece about empathy and practicing empathy for kids and families who are struggling in this space around food insecurity, around unemployment, because all of those issues manifest themselves in the classroom. And it's going to continue as this pandemic goes on. It's going to continue to be an issue, and really practicing empathy for other people, I think, is really, really critical, and other students in the classroom as well.
Absolutely. So I think from here, we're going to go ahead and stop sharing and take questions. We are going to drop the slide deck for you in case you would like to look over any of this. We have built in some resources that might be helpful for folks. There's an article from the Inquirer, a bunch of different tools for navigating tech, as well as a family checklist to think about in regards to coming back or returning to school post-COVID. But until then, I think that, we have a relatively small group. So if folks want to just ask us questions, we're happy to take them. And then also we included our emails in the slide deck so that if anybody would like to send us, personal messages, we're happy to take them. So does anybody have any thoughts, questions?
So I actually have a question. I have a 4-year-old, and he knows his letters and he can read like 3 and 4 letter words and stuff like that. However, for like the last year, we've been working on writing, and we even have like we've done writing without tears, and we've gotten the little things to help him hold the pencil and things like that. But it's been really, really difficult. And now that we're doing like the virtual learning in some different ways, that's also, it's like once we get to the writing piece and once the class is focusing on writing, I'm starting to see some behaviors. I've been trying to do like no more than 4 minutes before, no more than 4 minutes at a time at writing. But do you guys have any other tips for children and just kind of keeping them, like how to go about that process as somebody engaged?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I want to commend you for having the tools in place for the kiddo, like a pencil grip, I think you just said, as well as really limiting that time. I think 4 minutes is more than developmentally appropriate. You can also use a timer that works for some kids that are having resistance to certain types of work. There are some kids that really struggle, whether it be with writing or they are not so into doing math or, not so into their reading. And I think setting the timer makes it feel like it can be done in manageable chunks. The other piece, Tiffany, too, is also giving your kiddo an opportunity outside of academic space to really write what they are interested in. And so for a little, that can really take the form of journaling, that can take the form of writing in response to music or how you feel when you're doing something that you love the most, right? And there's also some really good strategies I can send you, as well as there's some good writing prompts and things like that get some kiddos who are more resistant to writing excited. But I do think setting those parameters around time, using a timer, can make it a little bit more, it can be helpful for the littles, especially when they're like, oh, I don't want to do this. And I can also, like I said, send you a couple of other resources that may help, but also just really knowing that they should have an opportunity to write about what they're interested in, even if the teacher's giving them other prompts.
Thank you so much. Any other questions?
All right.
Well, I see some people are thanking you guys in the comments. So you have from Tammy, thank you. Maslow has been very open to suggestions from parents as they have adapted to virtual learning and teaching. We have thank you from Lauren, and thank you from Omar. It's been so nice being with you all. That's for you guys. Please do not hesitate to reach out. And then we also have a thank you from Sporadic. So I just want to take this time to just thank everyone. Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Omar. This has been so helpful and so great. Also, another thank you to Mainline Fertility for sponsoring this session. You guys rock. Just so you all know, Lauren Overton is the principal at Penn Alexander in West Philadelphia. Omar Crowder is the principal at Northeast High School. And we just, from PFP and representing the board, just thank you both so much for doing this session for us. I know I got a lot from it.
Great. Thank you for having us. Have a wonderful day. Good luck. And we dropped our emails in the chat in case anybody would like to reach out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thanks, Tiffany. Take care. It was really nice to meet you.
Thanks, and it was really nice to meet you as well. I see only Sporadic is left on, and I realized that I did not do our survey. So Sporadic, if you have a few seconds, if you could do the survey really quickly, I would appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Take care. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.